We had a meeting about reopening on Tuesday. The owners and front-of-house manager had printed out the guidelines the Department of Public Health had issued for restaurants, and wanted us to sign them. As we were going over them, one of the owners made it very clear we were not actually going to be following these. I have a bit of legal training, and knew if anyone got sick, not following the guidelines is a huge deal. We could be liable for anyone getting sick or dying. By having us sign the guidelines, but not enforcing them, the owners were pushing all the liability onto us. I ripped my copy up, because there was no way I was going to be caught in that situation. I don't carry a multi-million-dollar business insurance policy to deal with a wrongful death lawsuit. Yesterday I sent the owners and phone manager an email discussing the importance of actually following the guidelines, and how important wearing masks are. This morning, I got fired over the phone. I'll bounce back strong. I have a decade of experience ranging from James Beard winning / finalist restaurants to fun casual brew pubs. My point is to watch out for extra sketchy shit employers might try and pull off during these crazy times. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's right, and protect yourself. Restaurants might view us as disposable and easily replaced, but I know the truth. Every one of us matters. We are individuals who make their restaurants what they are, and we deserve better. Love you all, and can't wait to serve you all up a great drink once I find a new spot. This is not my story but one from a former supervisor. Background: my former supervisor is Hispanic. This is important to note. His wife runs a successful business. Supervisor and wife both make a good income. Cast: S supervisor, you entitled woman. Several years ago my S and his wife purchased a home in a very upscale neighborhood in a large city in South Texas. As one might expect, South Texas in the summer is blistering hot. Many of the lawn service companies hire Hispanic laborers to service lawns in the area. These companies usually have a truck with a trailer full of lawn equipment. Story: it is summer in South Texas. S put on some shorts, a ratty t-shirt and tennis shoes. He tied a bandana around his head, pulled out his lawnmower and proceeded to mow his lawn. He was driving down the street and sees S. He was driving a high-end Cadillac and wearing a fur coat in a blistering South Texas summer. She pulls up next to S and proceeds to ask him how much he charges to do lawns. He tries to tell you that he doesn't do lawn service, he cutting his yard. You isn't absorbing anything S is telling her. After brief back and forth with it becoming obvious to S that even without a truck and trailer, S telling her he lives there, you will not accept this explanation. So S finally decides to give you his price for doing lawn work. S tells you his payment is he gets to sleep with the owner's wife. This seems to sink in and you can't drive away fast enough. I still laugh at that story, hope it is amusing to you. Set my father up a dead simple Linux box when I was off in college. Link to connect to the dial-up, link to the web browser, link to Pigeon for chat. That's it. Every time I came home I'd update, and that was it. 6 years, no support issues. Well, at some point there was a flash update and videos started not working on the old version. Okay, I'll remotely walk him through running updates. It's a 10-hour drive home. I try for a bit to walk him through the point-and-click interface, but it's painful because he can't ever find any button ever. So in a stroke of brilliance, I decide to just have him do it command line, since all you have to do is press F12 for a terminal, then type sudo yum update then your password. Then Y to confirm. Nice and unambiguous. An hour and a half later of the most painful troubleshooting I've ever done, trying everything and wondering why TF this simple thing is failing every time, he asks, wait, do you mean like just the letter Y? Yes, at the prompt apply updates? YN, he'd been typing Y? Every time. I would never have believed someone could be that stupid about anything. It sounds like a BS internet story, it was so bad. My wife came in after I hung up and saw my face and said, what's wrong? Edit, called and filed report, Highway Patrol investigating but said it's long shot. I had just rented a car with my best friend, we're both females in our late 20s. We needed it for her new job so I went with her to help with the process. We got the car and left the lot. As we approached the freeway on-ramp, while using Google Maps as we were unfamiliar with the area, there was a line of about 5 cars in the median. We waited until the double yellow lines broke to cross into the turn lane, but in order to do so we had to cut off someone else that had already lined up in the median. Technically they were doing something illegal, as to wait in median you would have to cross the double yellow line instead of just waiting in the legal lane to get to the turn lane. It was a red light, so not like we caused him to miss the light by going in front of him, but we of course waved and smiled our thanks. The man we accidentally cut off looked furious at our perceived slight and just glared at us from behind. We thought such an extreme reaction to this was unwarranted but were not fazed. When the light turned green 30 seconds later, he stayed right on our tail as we merged onto freeway. As we all crept up the on-ramp, he was so close it felt like he was going to hit us. I turned around to casually look back and instantly remarked, "He looks like a straight-up serial killer." White, late 50s, he had white scraggly long hair and a patchy layer of white facial hair. He was glaring at us like we kicked his dog, and we were miffed by his anger but didn't feel too unsafe being that we were in a car on a freeway on-ramp. Suddenly he pulls onto the shoulder and paces us so he is right next to me, the passenger. I try to not look as it is clear he is doing this to intimidate us, but after a few seconds I hazarded a look and he was maybe 5 feet away, smiling like the Joker, holding a gun and waving it at us. I screamed, "He's got a gun, get over, get over." But the traffic on the actual freeway was far faster than ours and we weren't yet up the ramp, so we were stuck. He maintained attempted eye contact with us while shaking the gun by his face and smiling manically. Luckily it was only a few seconds until we were able to get in a different lane and he, probably realizing we would be able to see his plates, quickly merged off onto a different freeway. We didn't get his plates so we didn't call the cops. So, man with gun just casually scaring women on the freeway, let's not meet. So another fun one. I had a customer a couple of days ago come to our drive-thru. I immediately get into battle position because this man is notorious for starting arguments and fights, but he never wins because he's never right. So this time it's about durian. He picked up the prescription 4 days ago and it's not what he needs. Unfortunately, sir, we are unable to take back a prescription once it leaves the pharmacy, but I recommend checking what it is in the future to prevent this from happening again. I'm saying all that dripping with attitude because 1, I know he won't ever do that. 2, I told him this the last 3 times he picked it up. I'm honestly sick of him and he immediately starts threatening to throw it away in the dumpster. I told him it's your medication, you are free to do with it as you need. He then starts shouting again and I hang up the drive-thru phone. I tell the floater pharmacist the situation and she then hops on the line. He starts over a go-no attitude because he doesn't know this lady and thinks he can get away with something. She says the exact same thing I said almost word for word and he again starts with the yelling and insults. She shuts him down and asks if he wants anything else. He's trying to pick up a prescription. The doctor just sent in something else. Another durian. I've been working my current post for about 3 years now. It is a rich gated community with 50+ homes. My job is mainly to inspect people coming in and make sure they are either on a resident's guest list or call the resident they are coming for to see if they are okay to come in. I answer phone calls from residents who tell me when they are expecting guests so I can let them in. I call different services, police, fire, animal control, plumbers, etc., for them. Basically I'm a receptionist with a security badge. 2 days after I finished training to be at this post, I had a lady drive up to my gate. So I approach her and say my normal hello, "How can I help you?" as I was trained to do when someone comes with a resident decal or pass. The gets mad and says that I should know who she is. She is the mother of ex-resident, how dare I not know her? When I explained how I'm new and didn't know everyone yet, she still got mad until she finally gave me her name so I could look her up. After confirming that she was ex-resident's mother, I told her she was free to go. She said, "You better not stop me next time. I never want to be stopped again. You should know everyone if you are going to work here." I laugh every time I see her. I remember that. Like, lady, I can't know you if I never met you before. What do you want? I know it's not the most interesting story, but every day when I see her I get a little laugh thinking about it. I have other stories about this community that are more interesting that I might post someday, but those require a lot my typing and I'm too lazy to write all that right now. This was something that happened to me about 12 or so years ago now. While in college I used to provide tech support for the campus computer labs. I would rotate between different labs on campus, and when a user had issues with a computer they could just walk up to the lab tech desk. This particular user started to approach the desk and just by her walk you knew she wasn't happy. User: "I have been trying to log in for the past 5 minutes and my login doesn't work." Back then this campus would use your SSN as your password. Yeah, super secure. Me: "Okay, when you're logging in, you're using your SSN for your password, correct?" User: "Yes. Of course, but it's not working. It's telling me my password is incorrect." I confirm her username in Active Directory. Me: "Okay, let's go check it out." We walk over to the computer she's using. Me: "Alright, show me what is going on." She proceeds to type in her username, which I confirm is her username. She clicks on the password field, stares at the number pad, types in her SSN, and hits enter. While she's staring at the keyboard, she never once looks up to see if anything is even being entered, hits enter, and then looks up. User, see. It's like I told you. I notice the numlock is off and know exactly what's going on, but I'm obviously not caring too much for her attitude. I start to slow play the obvious fix. Me, oh wow. Huh. That's weird. Try it again. She proceeds to roll her eyes, does the same actions again as I'm shaking my head, and she motions to the screen. User, well? I know I'm typing it in right. Me, type it a little slower. User, ugh. She proceeds to type it very slowly, still not looking up from the keyboard before hitting enter. User, K. Now what? She proceeds to cross her arms and stare at me. I look at her, hit the numlock key. As I'm walking away. Me, try it now. I go back to sitting at the lab tech desk to work on my homework. This came to me third hand, so I can't verify the truth of it, but it's a good story. I was told by a friend of a friend a story about Charlie Pride, for the younger generation, a very famous black country and western singer popular in the 70s and 80s. This was when he lived in a very exclusive part of Dallas called Highland Park, where all the millionaires and billionaires live. He said he was out trimming the hedges by the street in front of his house when a Karen in an expensive BMW stopped and rolled down the window and said, "Boy, how much would you charge to trim my yard?" He looked her straight in the eye and said, "Well, I guess I'd charge you my going rate." "How much is that?" she asked. "I'm guessing about $1,000 an hour, but I would have to check with my agent for sure," he said. "Well, you impudent man, I'm going to call your employer and tell him how rude you are," she yelled. I was told he then said with a grin, "Oh, please don't do that, I'm sure to get fired. I'm charging her $1,500 an hour and she would be mad to hear I would only charge you $1,000. When I was still in school, I had a part-time job in a small, independent craft store in the town I was living in at the time. It was a close walk from the house I shared with roommates, and the store was very mom and pop. I did a combo of cashier and stocking shelves, teaching kids classes, and updating the very basic website they had, so I was very familiar with the kind of items they carried. The coincidental part was that our house phone number was almost identical to the store number, ours ending with 7 and the store with 4. Easy to accidentally hit the wrong number dialing due to the position on the keypad. Every so often I'd get calls that went similar to me, "Hello? Someone random, oh, is this store name?" Me, "Well, no, that's actually a number. Sorry. Me, "Coincidentally I do work there, anything I can help with?" I'd answer their question about items in general, and make suggestions for projects they were working on if they were looking for direction. If they needed a stock check or to book a class, I'd have them call back the store instead. Usually it was older ladies calling, so I was happy to chat for a few minutes. Gotta help out a fellow crafter smile. "So, I work at a certain chain owned by the Mormons, you know the one, and I am just about done. Been working here for 7 years and change, and this is finally what has broken my spirits. I am the only front morning/evening front desk agent that wasn't let go during this whole thing. And on the weekend, I am entirely alone. I have no engineer, no housekeeping/laundry, no manager. The problem is, I am having to do all of the above-mentioned jobs while still attempting to do my job at front desk. I have to go back to laundry to fold towels so I have anything to give to guests. I then get an earful when I return to the desk because the person has been waiting to check in for almost 5 full minutes. The GM hasn't ordered any coffee packets for the rooms, despite us now being anywhere from 60 to 80% full. And I do get it. It's hard all over. Sometimes you gotta step up and do something that isn't your job. My issue is when I told my GM about all the complaints I've been getting due to me wearing multiple hats, being forced to be a jack of all trades and master of none, he sends out a boilerplate email to what little staff remains. Times are tough. If you can't handle having to take on additional responsibilities, then maybe it's time we sit down and have a long talk about your future in the company. As soon as I get moved into my new place, I'm looking for a new job. I can't take this. Work as a senior PM for a big retail company. At the time I was consulting and took the month of December off. Now the company I work for is huge, and they have a pharmacy division, which is where this takes place. The company in-house built an RX app. At the time it was still in its infancy phase and been rolled out to about 170 locations. The DB conversion from the old application does not carry everything over to the new app. This required the user to launch old app as a read-only in order to reference information. Business engaged IT for a project to roll out widescreen monitors to be installed as dual screen. I get a call from my manager telling me go look into it ASAP as the business is losing their shoot and the PM is botching the project. At this point all I know is the PM is messing up a monitor install. So I call him up, what's the scope? PM, just install a second monitor in 20 amount of stores. Me, why? That's not our standard. At this point I wasn't too familiar with this pharmacy app. PM, I don't know. I have the parts picked, I go to the lab, and call up the vendor installing it. Me, vendor what's your on-site scope? Vendor, install second monitor using the HDMI cable. Alright cool, let me mimic. I do the install, not working exactly as the business explained. Device manager video card, oh wow, this card is disabled as part of the base image. Cool, that explains why nothing happens when you plug in. I call the business lead, why do you need another monitor? She explains. Okay, so here's your problem, as of now the app can only run in 4:3 ratio. If you launch on the new monitor some buttons don't show up. I tested. I suggested to her to use Windows plus arrow key to snap the app to the side and snap old app to the other side. It's not what she wanted and doesn't look so great, some cut off, but it works for what she needed. Call up PM. Me, did you seriously not do even a sanity test or a POC? I had to ruin my vacation because you cannot even run a monitor project? My team does massive infrastructure related projects, so to mess up installing a monitor is ridiculous. PM, it's not my job to test, or coordinate these activities. I just buy the HW and engage vendor to install. K, now I am done with this conversation. It is literally the job of the PM to engage the right people and follow processes. Spoke to director who engaged me. He fired the guy in the new year. DL Dr. IT project manager couldn't do the most simplistic tasks, pulled me from vacation to resolve it. He was terminated not long after. I left out a lot, but I know the folks who read this are in the field and can fill in the blanks with their own experiences. Hey guys, so what I'm telling you happened around 4 months ago and I'm a 14-year male. We have a Bernese mountain dog called Ava who is 2 and weighs around 120 pounds, so she's very big. She's a quiet and lazy dog but also seems to be alert at all times. So one night my parents went out for dinner and left me at home with Ava. I was downstairs watching TV and my lounge is right next to the front door. Around 8 p.m. the door rang and I opened it to see a guy in fairly plain clothes standing there and he told me he had a delivery here. I was confused because he didn't look like a delivery driver and had no parcel. Suddenly I turn my head and see another guy round the side of my driveway which goes to our back door and he starts to walk towards the back door. I freak out and the guy at the door notices this and barges through shouting for the other guy. This is when Ava wakes up and begins to let out the loudest bark I've ever heard, making the guy stumble back. She rushed towards him and jumped up, grabbing his shoulder and literally throwing him out the door. His buddy came along but saw Ava and started to run. The other guy managed to slip out of Ava's grip and run down the road. I managed to get Ava to stay so I didn't lose her and they got away. I was so shook up I rang my parents and then the police and I gave them a statement. Safe to say Ava got plenty of treats from then on and I always keep her nearby when I am on my own. Long story short, I'm at my wit's end with a well-known wireless insurance provider. I've called off 4 times this month due to the stress and crazy metrics and demands. Today is my first day back and there was an email stating if you're on this list you're on a performance warning for attendance. My entire team is on the list. I found it hilarious and it speaks volumes about the company. I wonder if they are oblivious as it's painfully obvious that we are unhappy, stressed and overworked. I don't see change however. There will just be the never-ending hiring and high turnover. Guess that's just the nature of some call centers. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he, Appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. So in our location in Pennsylvania, we are moving to the green phase. After months of restrictions from red phase to yellow, we only had 22 cases of people who had the virus and every single one of them has gotten better, which is really exciting. Our boss informed us yesterday that we will be reopening next week. I've been waiting so long to hear this and I thought I'd be more excited, but I know it won't be the same and I think that's why I'm really bummed. Not everyone will come back, we will have no new movies and having to wear masks and gloves for entire shifts. It may be too soon, I don't know. I really thought I was going to be more excited. I think I'm afraid to see how different it's going to be. I know for one thing we are lucky to be reopening though. A lot of theaters/businesses are staying permanently closed from being closed for so long, and there was a huge chance we would have to as an independent theater. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. This happened 3 months ago on my second visit to a beach. I had never seen the ocean before and was very excited to experience it. Also, I don't know how to swim. My boyfriend and I went together towards the waves. We were jumping and frolicking around. The waves were very pleasant and I was having a lot of fun. Also, there was a big crowd at this particular beach. Now to the ugly part. The waves had been getting bigger gradually, but I am pretty tall and thought it wouldn't be a problem. Apparently, I'm also a meek, fragile girl with no training whatsoever. There came a huge wave. I went tumbling down. So now I've fallen down, no big deal, I'll just get up, right? I do so. My boyfriend helps me to get up too. Immediately, there's another wave and I fall down again. This time I also have no strength to get up because I hit my face on the sand and also breathed some water in. The waves throw me further ahead with a lot of force. Now I'm experiencing what it's like to drown. I see the water and I'm struggling to breathe while the sand keeps rubbing against my skin. The only thing I hear is my boyfriend calling out to me loudly. He tries to get me up but I show no strength. Then, finally, I get up. Another wave, I fall down and then get up again. Now all of this is happening with a strong current, but still, thankfully, we're not very far from the shore. He holds onto my clothes and brings them back to place. I walk back to the resting place like a loser. Try to avoid all eye contact. I hate bubbling now. I'm also doubtful if I'll ever be able to learn to swim, though I'd love to. The next day we had planned to go scuba diving but I came back crying, refusing to go in at all. Big F. DL, doctor, I don't know how to swim, have no experience with water, Almost drowned while jumping on small waves at the ocean, discovered I had no strength in my legs. Cherry on the cake, some people might have seen me in full view because my skirt went all the way up. This lady, at the register next to mine, tells my coworker, "Yeah, we're just visiting. You know that guy, George something, I don't know. The cops killed or whatever. That happened right downtown, I don't need any of that, so we're here on vacation." I can't imagine she could see my face through the mask, but what the flip. I guess when the racist law enforcement kills a black man for no reason, once again, and people are protesting it, by all means ignore it and go on vacation. I'm sure I wouldn't want to stay in town either, but really? Going on vacation because you don't need that and idioting to salespeople, so incredibly insensitively, about how inconvenient that is for you, Karen? Get out of my face. Edit, black to black man because I cannot type as fast as I think. My parents own a company. My parents are sometimes as on call at home. This story is about the time I overheard them talking about a Kevin. This didn't happen in English, so I'll translate. K Kevin. D Dad. M Mom. Kevin would almost never do work and blame others for not giving him files. He always knew my parents owned the company. He kept blaming this one guy, but then he tried to talk to my parents to file a complaint. K. Boss? D. Yeah? K. I'd like to complain about someone. M. Who? K. Insert parents' names. D. Excuse me? K. You heard me, I want to complain about you to you. He somehow managed to keep his job. I don't know why, but my parents didn't fire him for being lazy and stupid. We have a limited menu at work. Everything on it we've had before with the exception of 2 things. It's still our menu, just smaller. So we have a bunch of returning customers upset that their favorite thing isn't available. They respond in a variety of ways. My favorite being, "Oh, that's too bad. I'll just get something else." Then there's the middle of the road silence with an eye roll. My least favorite is "Why? I don't know, man. I'm a server." It probably has something to do with there only being 3 people in the kitchen where there's normally 8. I also don't have time to try and answer these questions because I'm one of 5 servers on the floor where there's normally 16. And in the same vein, no, I do not know when things are going to go back to normal. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an economist. I'm not a politician. Again, I'm a server. I have many things to do. I have many tables to attend to. I understand you're probably anxious, maybe a little scared. You should probably find someone to talk. Someone that is not me. Someone that is not a very busy server. Enjoy your meal. I am pretty new at my place. When we reopened after the pandemic, they said we would be using paper menus, sanitizing tables and chairs, masks and gloves, all that. I felt good about it, so I went into work. Right away, people fell back into old habits. People were not wearing gloves, masks were being pulled down constantly, barely sanitizing tables and chairs. We used the handheld POS, and we weren't cleaning those. Everything we actually were doing was for show, it wasn't actually protecting anybody. I tried to just make sure I was being clean. I washed my hands often, switched gloves as frequently as possible, trying to not wear the same pair from table to table. I sanitized my own tables and chairs. I actually got yelled at for using too many gloves. Additionally, I was making hardly any money while working, and exposing myself to illness at a place that clearly doesn't care. A lot of my co-workers had taken second jobs and were talking about all their co-workers who tested positive, and saying they didn't feel so well themselves. I knew I needed to stop going in, but I didn't want to get fired because I don't know what may happen in the next few weeks. I spun a pretty elaborate lie so I can safely stay away for a while and figure out what to do. But, it sucks that I'm so scared of being fired that I have to do this. The industry, and most companies, really, treat us like we're so expendable, and it really sucks. I've seen a few posts about people being fired due to actually caring about the health and wellness of themselves and others. I just want to say, do not sacrifice your health for your job. I know for some people there is no choice, you have to work, and for that, I am so sorry. I wish everyone was taking this seriously, so we could get back to normal as soon as possible. In good news, it seems as though cases are falling. I hope everyone has been staying safe and continues to do so. I went on a bike ride today with my friend. We were social distancing BTW, and I took her on this route that I had been to one time before with my family. It was a busy street and I stupidly decided to make a left turn from the very right side of the street. I didn't even look, and before I knew it a white Tesla blurred before my eyes. When I got up she started telling me to sit down and it sounded like I was underwater and there was some ringing sounds. Later I realized it was just the shock. I ended up having only a very small scrape on my right arm but right around my tailbone hurt bad but not too bad. I was wearing a helmet and I'm so very thankful for that. The shock wore off and the lady in the car ended up parking a block away and walking to me to ask if I was okay. The thing is she did absolutely nothing wrong. I think I was even in her lane but I'm not quite sure because it happened so fast. My friend immediately started asking me what my name is and family's names and personal information and I knew everything. She also checked my pupils and made me do a straight line walking test. We ended up going home after we sat down for quite a while but I was honestly fine going home and when we had to part paths I was totally okay on the way home. I was so scared of what my mom would say if I told her that a car hit me, so I told her I hit a street pole really hard but I am telling her whenever something hurts or if anything bothers me at all. BTW I am not even bruised on my tailbone and I've been walking all day. In a way it is so embarrassing and scary I was nervous to tell even my best friend. It's been 10 hours but it still occupies my brain every second of today. I just can't believe it happened and how fortunate I am that it's nothing more serious and that I am even alive right now. DL, Doctor I got hit by a car but I'm okay. My restaurant/bar I work at opened for dine-in a week ago. It's been busy but we have a lot of good social distancing and safety measures in place. A lot of customers have told us we're the safest restaurant they've been to. So I've been feeling okay with going back to work because I felt safe enough. Tonight, my coworker told me that the 4 customers at her table worked at a bar that had just been shut down because some of their employees tested positive for COVID. If you are exposed to COVID, you have to stay home. You have to quarantine yourself for at least 14 days. Immediately I was disgusted and freaked out about what I could have touched or how close I had gotten to them. What were they thinking? How do people think this thing spreads? My manager found out but just let them stay, probably to keep a good relationship with their bar. But I was so furious and frustrated. I had wondered before if any of our customers could have it, but to know for sure that I had been in a room with multiple people, masks off, eating and drinking, that had been exposed to COVID. Ugh. Honestly, though. Is there anything better than dead/messed up food? Coming back to the kitchen and seeing a glorious plate of something delicious that turns into a free-for-all? Tonight, our kitchen got obliterated during dinner rush, and tons of food died, got dropped in its to-go boxes, etc. 2 different sushi rolls, our signature burger, pretzels and beer cheese, fried pickles, Cobb salad, and a specifically modified order of bacon and cheese tater tots. What a good day. A feast, let me tell ya. Note, obviously dead food isn't good for profit margins. But it's good for my soul. Tifu by realizing that I haven't been breathing correctly my entire life. So, as the title says I haven't been breathing correctly, for pretty much my entire life which has resulted in many panic attacks. Since the lockdown my mental health has obviously been affected. I'm also someone who was diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was 17, so a dive to my mental health can sometimes result in a full breakdown. But I know my warning signs and I'm actually really taking care of myself despite the panic attacks I've been having recently. Which is where the FU comes in. So, I'm in a way to take care of my mental health. I'm taking up fitness. I used to do it before but it was only 2 times a week and I was never dedicated to it. I've got some aches and pains when I do certain workouts and I was doing a quick Google for some tips about form etc. Then I come across Chloe Ting, and her core workout tips and what engaging your core really means. It's during this video that I realized that my entire life I've only ever been using my chest to breath, and I've never used my entire diaphragm. I was experiencing a mild panic attack before the video and with the heat I've been finding it harder to overcome it, but as soon as I started practicing breathing with my diaphragm the panic attack fades and I relax. But because I haven't been using my diaphragm to its fullest extent my entire life I feel like I'm having a core workout. TL Doctor I haven't been using my full diaphragm when breathing and now I'm experiencing an unintended ab workout and realizing that my recent panic attacks were literally just shortness of breath. This happened years ago, not today, but I'm posting anyway. I live in NH, and I love to go climbing in the White Mountains on a nice summer weekend. My college buddies from out of town were visiting as part of a cross-country road trip after they graduated. They had no idea what NH had to offer, so I was really their guide for the weekend. I thought I'd take them into the North Country for some climbing. We had a blast. They had never done any climbing, and never seen woods like we have. Couldn't have asked for better weather. They kept acting out scenes from LOTR as we were hiking around. It was perfect. So we just about make it back to the car when we pass by this guy who says there's a fire over there and just keeps walking down the road. Without a second thought, we go to check out what he's talking about. Sure enough, there's a pretty out-of-control fire on the ground in the woods, and we start trying to stomp it out. It becomes clear that we need help, so I call 911, and we're there stomping away until several fire trucks and cop cars arrive. They told us to get out of the way, but stay put, and started spraying this foam everywhere. A lot of foam. It put the fire out really quick. We're exhausted, but think we did something special in saving the woods. Then, police started asking us questions. What were we doing there, IDs, do we smoke, etc. It suddenly dawned on me, they think we started the fire. We tell them about the random guy, and keep questioning us while they send a car down the road looking him. I can tell they don't believe us. Now we're freaking out. They're separating us to see if our stories match up and everything. The car comes back with the dude in it, and we're told we can go. Phew. TL/doctor, I reported a forest fire and almost got my friends and I arrested. My restaurant/bar I work at opened for dine-in a week ago. It's been busy but we have a lot of good social distancing and safety measures in place. A lot of customers have told us we're the safest restaurant they've been to. So I've been feeling okay with going back to work because I felt safe enough. Tonight, my coworker told me that the 4 customers at her table worked at a bar that had just been shut down because some of their employees tested positive for COVID. If you were exposed to COVID, you have to stay home. You have to quarantine yourself for at least 14 days. Immediately I was disgusted and freaked out about what I could have touched or how close I had gotten to them. What were they thinking? How do people think this thing spreads? My manager found out but just let them stay, probably to keep a good relationship with their bar. But I was so furious and frustrated. I had wondered before if any of our customers could have it, but to know for sure that I had been in a room with multiple people, masks off, eating and drinking, that had been exposed to COVID. Ugh. Tifu by realizing that I haven't been breathing correctly my entire life. So, as the title says, I haven't been breathing correctly, for pretty much my entire life, which has resulted in many panic attacks. Since the lockdown my mental health has obviously been affected. I'm also someone who was diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was 17, so a dive to my mental health can sometimes result in a full breakdown, but I know my warning signs and I'm actually really taking care of myself despite the panic attacks I've been having recently. Which is where the FU comes in. So, I'm in a way to take care of my mental health. I'm taking up fitness. I used to do it before but it was only 2 times a week and I was never dedicated to it. I've got some aches and pains when I do certain workouts and I was doing a quick Google for some tips about form etc. Then I come across Chloe Ting, and her core workout tips and what engaging your core really means. It's during this video that I realized that my entire life I've only ever been using my chest to breath, and I've never used my entire diaphragm. I was experiencing a mild panic attack before the video and with the heat I've been finding it harder to overcome it, but as soon as I started practicing breathing with my diaphragm the panic attack fades and I relax. But because I haven't been using my diaphragm to its fullest extent my entire life I feel like I'm having a core workout. TL doctor, I haven't been using my full diaphragm when breathing and now I'm experiencing an unintended ab workout and realizing that my recent panic attacks were literally just shortness of breath. A few weeks ago, I got a request to do a profile transfer for a patient whose insurance was locking them into our chain. Got all the info and prepared to call the other pharmacy. RPH, pharmacy, how can I help you? Me, hi, I'm calling to get some transfers. Patient's name is first last and date of birth is DOB. RPH, okay, what do you need transferred? Me, it's gonna be a profile transfer, so everything. RPH, well I can't transfer you everything, just the ones that have refills. MFW. Today I only worked a half day, the closing shift. Another intern had been in that morning and tried to do a transfer, but the fax that was attached to it was totally unreadable, MFW. So I decided to call to try and get it transferred verbally. RPH, pharmacy, how can I help you? Me, hi, my colleague called to get some transfers from you earlier but the fax is really difficult to read so I was wondering if I could get them verbally. Patient's name is first last and date of birth is DOB. RPH, okay, which ones do you need? Me, looks like there's 3 drugs, but the last one has a note that there were no refills so we can just skip that one. RPH, I already faxed those to you when colleague called earlier. MFW. Me, right. The fax we received is really hard to read, so I just need to get them verbally. RPH, I faxed them earlier to fax number. Me, so yes, that is our fax number, but I don't have any record of receiving some of them and the others are unreadable. RPH, fine, I'll dig them out of the trash and resend them. MFW. As it was basically closing time for us, other pharmacy would be open for at least another hour, I decided to just leave it with a note for the staff tomorrow. Side note, I don't 100% remember which pharmacy the first tale is about, but I'm pretty sure it's the same one as the second. Not just the same chain, but the same location too. I'm taking a coding class and have a project where I have to make a website, so I chose to do a gallery of my mom's paintings. She does mostly landscapes, and I always thought they were beautiful, and making a site to display them and sell them seemed like the best way to use this big project. We had to come up with a name for the site, and I realized art by mom's name / sounded really boring, so I researched and thought the name Halcyon Days might be a cute name, to convey a sense of wandering peacefully through nature, content. I told my mom and she looked at me really strange. Mom, are my paintings really that boring? Me, no, not boring. Peaceful, and pretty. You know, Halcyon? Like, being at peace and stuff? Mom, yeah, I know Halcyon. That's a horse tranquilizer or something. Me, and no? So I go to look it up, turns out Halcyon is a sleeping pill. She thought I said Halcyon Days as in being flipped up from taking too many sleeping pills. My husband was about to have an aneurysm laughing. FML. And #X200B. TL, doctor named my mom's art gallery website after drugs. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. So I had a pretty crazy teacher. I was in year 4, and for the first quarter of the year or so, she was fine, a bit patronizing and overzealous, but fine. Then things got weird. If a student did something she disagreed with, or didn't like, she would take it as a very personal attack, and we would be made to try and make her feel better by comforting her, and giving her this pink cowboy hat she had. This was weird, but fine. As this continued, she would often shout, maybe twice a week, very aggressively at students, for very minor things. This became more and more common, and started to include profanities as well. Then one day, she locked us in the classroom, and left us to our own devices, in the blistering heat, for over an hour, before we were found by another member of staff. It was at this point that me and a few of my friends reported some of the things she'd been doing to the head of the school, who, on several occasions, had words with her. Nothing changed, things got worse. At this point in the year, everybody was really into these collectible football cards, not because we particularly liked football, but just to collect and trade them. It gave us something to do. Some people spent an awful lot of money on these little things. One day she got very angry at a friend of mine, for very little again. Cursing and screaming at him, she flushed all of his football cards down the toilet at the end of the corridor. I'm pretty sure his mom sued the school, if I remember correctly. There is a long list of other things she did, and eventually, we reported her to the head. The next day the head told us that she was on her last chance, and would fire her. We were to tell her if she did anything new or serious. It was about 3/4 of the way through the year now, and some friends and I went back to the classroom at lunch to get our football cards. The chairs were blocked by large stacks of chairs, and the teacher seemed to be in the book corner, buried under cushions and such. Anyway, one of my friends managed to force his way in, and get to his tray, to get his cards. Upon realizing this, the teacher jumped out on the corner, like a wild animal, and screaming through her tears, for him to get the F out of the classroom. He legged it out, and we all stood there rather bewildered and concerned for a few minutes, before deciding it was best we told somebody. We never saw her again after that. Most students didn't know what had happened, but about 5 of us were unfortunate enough to know. The only thing I've ever heard about her since, is that she went to start a gluten-free shop a few towns over. Bit of a career change. In hindsight, I don't really hold anything she did against her, I think she was genuinely troubled, and didn't really know or think what she was doing. And for some parts of the year, she was fine, went through stages I suppose. This happened a few months ago around February and March, though many things took place over the last 10 months or so. I will leave as much specific information out since I am still employed at this establishment. I work at a casino that decided to open up a food court. I was assigned to a burger restaurant that was opening a chain location at the casino. The manager that would be in charge of us decides on a career change and becomes a manager while having no restaurant experience whatsoever. Her previous job was as a wedding planner, yet the casino spent thousands sending her out of state to train her. This manager had become an absolute failure. There was no order in the kitchen. The manager had also been doing things and ordering ingredients not on par with the standards of the chain. There was also no knowledge of sanitary procedures whatsoever. This manager's work was very bad and became a bit conceited when she got rid of the supervisors who did their job. Things were a mess and it was a result of the horrible management. Fast forward to February, where we had a meeting with all the higher-ups in the casino. I lost my cool and confidently spoke about the bad state of the restaurant. I took most of the time spilling every single complaint that me and my coworkers had. After this meeting, our manager began to fall apart. Most shifts were spent with her crying and being unreasonably mean to myself and our co-workers. Things got to the point that she was transferred out of her position and now no longer works with us. Because I was the only one to speak out, I ended up causing a woman to lose all shred of confidence, sanity, and her job. I was a hero amongst my coworkers since I aired their grievances. Drive, I was critical about a manager that she went nuts and no longer has a job. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby, so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. Okay, so at the time this happened, I had been a server for about 3 months. I sit a table of 5 down, 2 adults, 2 older kids, and a little girl, and go through my process. After bringing their food out and making sure nobody needs refills, I go back to the server station. A couple minutes later, the man from the table comes up to the server station and I'm worried that I forgot something or that he has a complaint. He says, "My daughter wants some ketchup, but she wants to ask you for it." I say okay, and after waiting a couple of seconds for him to return and sit down, I walk over and check on them. As I'm walking, the little girl is smiling and fidgeting with excitement. When everyone says they're enjoying everything, she asks me for some ketchup, which I bring out. Everything was normal from then on out. At around 8:45, we close at 9, I start cleaning up. The family had finished eating, their check was paid, and I had bussed most of their dishes. When I have tables like this, I like to tell them bye as they're leaving, so I did my best to clean things up front so I could see them leave. By 9 o'clock, they still hadn't left, which I thought was weird. Finally, after I had cleaned everything I could think of up front, I go to turn the sign off. Turns out, the little girl didn't want to leave until she personally handed me my tip. When she saw me, she ran up to me with a 20 bill. This happened over 5 months ago, but I still smile when I think about it. This happened yesterday, so technically it's a yesterday I flipped up. So yesterday we had frozen pizza since I finished my school for the year to celebrate. I put it in the oven and go choose a movie with my family. Up to this point everything is going smoothly. The pizza is a little crispy. I cut it into 8 slices and ate in front of the TV. Here comes the flip up. The cheese was super loose and scorching hot, so the cheese slips out of the pizza and right on my chin, burning my it. Now you might ask, that is not that bad, why is this a flip up? Well, I have to take a picture of my face for the yearbook for being on a sports team, with half of the skin on my chin missing, so for years to come, they will see a dumbass that got burned by a pizza on the sports team for this year. DL, Doctor, I ate a pizza without letting it cool down, and my chin got burned before end of year photos. It happened when I was 3/4 years old. My parents and I were going to visit some family members that lived around 600 kilometers from where we lived. We were going there with our car at around 10 p.m. to arrive there in the early morning. My mom was still in the house preparing stuff and sandwiches, and my dad was putting things in the car, and he was going back and forth between the car and our house while I was sitting in the back seat. At one moment I felt danger and asked my dad to stay with me in the car, but he refused and said not to worry because it's a small town which is relatively safe. 20 seconds after he left, a dude literally entered in the car and started stealing stuff. Thank God light was shut as he didn't see me and my dad still had the keys with him. When I saw him I couldn't move from fear. Then that man heard my dad coming back. He threw everything he stole back in the car and ran away. My parents never believed me, and to this day I still wonder what would have happened to me if he saw me, and what would have happened if my dad left the keys in the car. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of U11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much, and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Me and my roommate are both musicians, but he makes a living and I work a tough job although I'm home BC COVID. We are friends, but he keeps pushing the acceptable boundaries of borrowing my gear, and never asks. I came home today and he said it's time to get the studio up again as though it benefits both of us, but he just wants to use 90% my stuff and presumes to do so without discussion, so that I have to be a buzzkill and say hey, I'm not interested in forfeiting my own gear for your use just because I was inactive with it. This is not a huge issue, but we've had discussions about boundaries and respect before and he can't take the hint somehow. A culture of sharing is one thing, but since there's no reciprocity of any kind, he should really ask. So today me and my sister were going swimming at a private lake that's a little ways away from our house. We dropped off some groceries at my crush's house because it was his grandma was really old and couldn't risk leaving the house, and my crush couldn't drive yet. I got out of the car and helped take groceries inside, just wearing shirts and my swimsuit top. Inside we talked for a second and I pulled the string on my top just fidgeting, and usually I tie it in a knot, but my sister tied it for me and tied the string in a bow. That's when my top comes off and my crush gets a good view and I just freeze for and then run around the corner dying of embarrassment. I tie it back up while hiding in his hallway. I come back out and he's carrying the rest of the groceries inside, and when I pass him he just laughs and said, well, that was awkward. Yeah, so that's the story of how I foo. DL, Dr. Tifu, when my bathing suit top fell off in front of my crush and he saw me naked. I don't know what made me remember this, but I went on a first date with a really cute nice girl who I had just met. This was several years ago, and she suggested sushi. I don't like seafood, but I go anyway. Everything is going well, conversations are good, I didn't embarrass myself too much while trying sushi for the first time. We go to leave this nicer restaurant, Next to us is a young family with a toddler who is starting to get restless. As I stand up, the mom snaps at the boy, "Sit down," and I promptly, without missing a beat, sit back in my chair. So there I am, awkwardly thinking, do I stand back up now? And I just start laughing like a madman. Luckily the waiter and the girl I was with saw and started laughing too. So it broke the ice. TLDR, leaving first date, the mom next to me used her mom voice on a child and I listened. Sorry for bad English. The story: at the time of this story, I was in my freshman year of high school. In my country, speaking Spanish is a felony. I'm a very by-the-book person, so, despite fluently speaking Spanish, I never spoke it in public. In my school, there were quite a few people like me who I knew could speak Spanish. They were much more open about this than I was, and often spoke Spanish to each other in our school bathroom. In my country, public bathrooms have no stalls. Now, before we move forward, I'll mention that these were not the best people. They constantly bullied everyone and everyone disliked them and everyone hated them. So, one day I went to the bathroom and they were in there, speaking Spanish. Early that day, they had surrounded me and my locker. They proceeded to slam me into the locker repeatedly. In my country, a student can't be punished unless they have committed a felony, so they were let off the hook for this. This is where the petty revenge comes in. Upon hearing these bullies speak Spanish, I walked out of the bathroom and to the headmaster's office. I reported what I had heard, and the police were called, and the three were arrested. The aftermath: charges were brought onto the girls, as they had been caught red-handed. They ended up getting suspended, as minors can't go to prison. All in all, I was pretty happy with my revenge, lol. Not me, but witnessed my bar manager go through this. Customer: excuse me, I've been waiting ages and you served everyone except me. Bar manager: I'm sorry love, what do you want? C: I'm not your love. Stares. BM: I'm sorry, can I get you anything? C: I think it's awful how you ignore customers who have been waiting for so long. BM: I didn't realize you had been waiting so long, what can I get you? C: Well, I think this is awful, 5 people must have come after me and been served. BM: I apologize again, I'll get you your drinks now, what would you like? C: For free? BM: Sorry, I can't do them for free. C: Why not? I've had to wait for so long, it's the least you can do. BM: I don't think it works like that, do you want any drinks or not? C: Of course I do, why do you think I was waiting at the bar? But I don't think I should have to pay. BM: You can either buy a drink or stand away from the bar, I'm afraid, that's all we can offer. C: Fine. But I don't want you to serve me. BM: Why not? C: Because you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing. BM: Well, everyone else here didn't serve you fast enough either, what difference does it make who pours your drinks? C: Well, I've just said, anyone but you. Now get somebody else. BM: Well, the other staff are busy mixing drinks, so you'll have to wait if you want them. C: Are you kidding? Flip you. BM: Flip me? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Commence ranting and shouting, followed by the bouncer escorting her out. Tifu by indirectly calling my niece fat. DL, doctor, mixed up words and recommended my obese niece get a treadmill for her birthday. Today when me and my mom were biking, we drove past our relative's home, so we decided to visit. Quarantine laws have been semi-lifted here. After sitting down after a long ride, we started chatting about life. My niece, who is quite obese, came outside to say hello, and since her birthday is close, my mother asked her what she wants for birthday. She said a piano, and to specify, my mom asked if she means a mechanical piano. I said with the most serious face, I believe you mean a treadmill. In my language, treadmill is kind of similar to a synthesizer. Instantly my niece's mother looked at me with the most serious face and the niece quietly ran back inside. My mother excused us and we left. I still hadn't realized what I'd done wrong. On our way back my mom asked me what's wrong with me, and that's when it hit me. I'm a effing dumbass. I work as a newscast director, and the system we use is automated. The setup in front of me includes 3 touch screens that I use to control the newscast. Well, today I was about to transition from a camera shot on the anchor to a sound bite, and after that was weather. As I was making adjustments I felt a sneeze come on. There were people on both sides of me, so I covered my face in my elbow and sneezed forward. My sneeze was much more powerful than expected, and I got spittle on the touchscreen. It wouldn't let me advance forward, so I had to tell my coworker to tell the anchor to just ad-lib, or something, while I scrambled to find where I spit on the screen. It was a tough recovery, but she handled it well, I'll give her that. A few precious seconds later I managed to wipe it off and advance. When we hit the next break, everyone cracked up about it. When I wrote up the issue, director sneezed on control screen, she was unable to advance right away. I thought I was done with it. A couple hours later, when I was done with my shows, I was asked into my supervisor's office. At this point I figured it was going to be a write-up or I'll get in trouble. But no, I was greeted with several boxes of facial tissue. She said it was pretty much a rite of passage when working with automated systems. DL, Drive. I work in news. I sneezed on a touchscreen that controls the broadcast. Caused some minor tech issues, but everyone laughed it off.